Hey guys, just want to go through an article that I just saw on insider.com. The title is "The Keto Diet is the Worst Diet for Healthy Eating According to New Rankings." Um, so this is based on a U.S. News and World Report. They say that it's a list created annually by a panel of nutrition experts and health specialists. So they also ranked the diet poorly for heart health sustainability, and it was the second to last overall on 35 diets. Advocates, and they just explain advocates, claim that you burn fat and it's good for weight loss, blah, 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 blah. So first of all, notice when you see these articles come out, often it's just propaganda. They know that people generally have a short attention span. We tend to look at the big headlines. They make sure to put things in bold. This particular article that I'm taking as an example doesn't really have any citations. So they don't really say who the nutrition experts are, the health specialists. Even if they would, nutritionists and dietitians learn the food guide. They're taught the low-fat paradigm. They're taught saturated fat is bad, cholesterol is bad. Often you're going to have this idea that at best when they're criticizing, they're saying, well, it's because we don't have research about it. However, if you look at nutritional science, number one is based on observational science. If they want to make it sound really scientific, they're going to say epidemiological science. Which is observational science. I had said, I think in a previous video, that the scientific method is basically, observation. You form a hypothesis, you try and isolate as many variables, and then after you go through the method, you come up with the hypothesis, you print your results and the conclusions, all that stuff, all that's good stuff. And it's supposed to be able to be reproducible. Observational science, epidemiological science, and stuff like that, these can prove some associations. It's very close to statistics. So they'll send out food questionnaires. Let's say I live in Canada, so they'll send out food questionnaires to all the provinces. Maybe they want to, concentrate on eggs, for example. So they'll ask, I'll receive a food questionnaire in the mail, and they'll say, how many eggs do you eat in a week? How many have you eaten in the last year? How many have, down, how many have you eaten in a lifetime? These observational science and epidemiological science, which is the exact same thing, they're based on food questionnaires. People are not accurate, even if they're not willingly lying. It's just the way they're worded. It's just based on human recall. We know that people put on a lot of weight, and they'll lie to themselves and say oh, do you eat a lot of junk food? No, I never do. It's come on. Most people are in denial, don't really keep track of how many times they cheat. So it's not accurate. Then after they'll get each province, let's say, back, and they'll look at the egg consumption overall per province in Canada, and then they'll just overlay that with if they want to isolate cancer or a specific kind of cancer, they'll look at the cancer rates in that province, and then they'll say, hey, do the people consuming eggs, for example, do they have higher rates? And they can literally print it out and make a career on it, saying there's an association. And that's just because the lines follow this way. It has nothing to do with cause. Especially if there's an agenda behind it, they can not ask the questions that they don't want to hear the answers, and they can really manipulate this stuff. If they, it's really not accurate. What it's useful for, it's not doesn't have no purpose. What it's useful for is, before you spend all that money to prove if there's a cause, where it's a lot more expensive, it's randomized controlled studies, blah, 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 double-blind studies, a lot more money. They can possibly, though, prove causes. So yeah, instead of like just guessing, with causes, hey, do some associative studies. If you see a linear relationship, well, let's do a control trial and see if there's actual causes, based on those hypotheses that you received. So it's a useful tool for scientists, but even that, there's the healthy user bias. If you're doing a study comparing meat eaters and non-meat eaters, well, you're going to have the keto, the carnivore community that's extremely healthy, reversing metabolic disorders, most modern diseases, everything's improving. But within those people are the cocaine sniffing, cigarette smoking, McDonald's consuming, Dorito eating people. So you have, as far as the general public are concerned that are busy, we're not like seeking out, nor are we trained to know what's the difference between associated, increased risk, links, it's linked to. These are being published to the general public, and there's an agenda behind it, and it's a way of socially engineering and influencing us. This is a perfect example, this insider.com. The keto diet is the worst diet for healthy eating. It's the worst, almost the worst. It's 34 out of 35, right? So why are you focusing so much on a useless diet? Why did they do an article on the worst one? It's because the ketogenic diet is making a splash. It's getting the results, and at best, the critics will say, well, there's not enough research. However, was there enough research done to pull out animal fats, to incorporate seed oils, to totally switch up what humans have been eating in the past, right? Based on food questionnaires. So, they're being really hard and saying, well, we're not sure, at best, we're not sure because there's no studies. But you guys totally switched out. You lowered the fat intake that humans were consuming. You incorporated carbohydrates. In those carbohydrates was refined sugars. I lived, when I was a kid, and it was normal, it's like, I remember fruit roll-ups. Everybody had like Kool-Aid, the commercials, oh yeah, the big Kool-Aid guy. It's like, we lived on Kool-Aid, and it was fine, so all the cereals are just basically carbohydrates, and all of this was switched up, and it was based on food questionnaires. Now we do have some real science based on, like I said, Weston Price's research. You can go look up Sally Fallon, who's now in charge of his research and his foundation. He was a Canadian that went around the world where there were still isolated areas that had not made contact with modern culture, the way we eat and the food that we've been consuming, which was largely refined and man-made. So we see in these populations that their health is exceptional, their physique is exceptional. They seem to have been immune to tuberculosis. They had better dental formation, the bone density was better. Just look up Weston Price or Sally Fallon or Wise Traditions. That's a podcast. It's all based on Weston Price. And there's a book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Now, this is actually sound science. In a way, it's like a control group and a test group. You have a population that has a very good health that is not tainted by modern disease. And then after you have the same population that are infected, no, they're not infected by, in a way they are infected by modern men. And you see with the same genetics, they just, their health deteriorates. They become susceptible, to tuberculosis and to viruses. So to me, this is sound science. It's comparing, this is how they used to eat. What were they eating? Well, they were not vegans. They were not eating processed food. and they were definitely not eating polyunsaturated canola, seed oils, and stuff like that require modern technology, refinement, processes. So they were either, for example, the Maasai were highly carnivorous. The Maori, no, the Maasai were strictly carnivorous. The Maori were highly carnivorous. You know, every culture, every healthy culture had a certain amount of animal food. This idea that India is a vegan nation or something, no, they're vegetarian, and only 40% of India are vegetarians. And they, don't eat the cow, but they use, the milk, they make ghee. They're large consumers of chicken, and animal protein. Animal food is so complete within its proteins, within the essential fats, within the fat-soluble vitamins, right down to vitamin C in muscle meat, that you don't need to eat like pork, chicken, you can almost sustain yourself on one source of food. Like people living close to the ocean would, maybe rely just on what they could catch from the ocean. They didn't necessarily have to rotate, pork, chicken, and stuff like that. People that are vegetarian but consume a large amount of, let's say, just eggs, will pretty much get everything that they need. Eggs is a great source of protein, has saturated fat, has cholesterol, has pretty much like vitamin D and E. I think like 2-3 eggs, you're completing everything. It's such a complete food. So let's just continue a little bit, keeping in mind that this article, for example, has 0 citations. You're going to often hear, well, the ketogenic diet isn't good because people on a ketogenic diet could consume a high quantity of saturated fat, and there's a lot of red meat. But let's look back, and you probably recently, over the past maybe 2 years, not like a long time, this red meat and colorectal cancer and stuff like that. So that came out, everybody's aware of it. And then after more research comes out and says it's not very accurate. And if it is, it's processed, and even within the processed meat, it's very minimal. But then you don't get like headlines saying like, oh, that's been refuted. And then people continue with that. At the hospital where I work, I noticed this guy who was like, do you guys have any sandwiches? He was looking just for the sandwiches with the white bread, and there was none. And just as a joke, I'm like, oh, and I pointed near the Jello, and I was like, oh, there's some filet mignon over there. They're like, I don't eat red meat. I'm like biting my lip because I had a stethoscope, and I'm an employee, so I'm not going to start preaching my ideology. But it was like, like my eyes started twitching, so this article, let's see why it's the last on the list, the second to last on the list. Let's see what they were basing it on. Where's that criteria? I checked before. Notoriously, oh yeah. So it also ranked low in sustainability, as a keto diet requires strict limitation on consuming any kind of carbohydrate. This makes keto notoriously difficult to follow, especially over long term, since the rules are even more because it rules out even some healthy foods such as fruits, whole grains, and starchy vegetables. Well, first of all, you can consume small amount of fruits, berries, avocados. Actually, yeah, it does rule. It does, rule out. Just don't forget, I'm on a video, dude. The whole grains, yeah, definitely, it's crap, and many people are aware of that. There's the movie Grain Brain. There's plenty of people that are gluten intolerant. I didn't tolerate it unknowingly. I had issues with the whole grain. The minute I stopped, it was like, yeah, let's just say it was better. I won't get gross about it. And starchy vegetables. Oh, so we have to eliminate. It says we eliminate starchy vegetables because somehow starchy vegetables have some magical unicorn nutrients in it that are essential. So the ketogenic diet, if you want, can be very high vegetable diet. If you're eating a pork chop and you're not eating some carby thing, then what do you think you're putting there? You're putting asparagus, Brussels sprout, you can make a Caesar salad, you can eat pretty much whatever you want except for those starchy veggies. So, I mean, think of it. You could have salmon with some olive oil drizzled, some Brussels sprouts, cracked salt on it, and butter. That's the ketogenic diet. That's a ketogenic meal. However, that's going to kill you for some reason. You got to eat, your chickpeas or something that is, anyways. I want to see because I want to see the criteria that they used for judging it. I had it somewhere, but I should have just read through the whole thing. It would have been faster. Oh yeah. The rankings were based on 7 categories in which each diet was ranked on a scale of 1 to 5. So the categories were nutritional completeness. All right. So if you're on a vegan diet, okay, you are deficient in vitamin A because a vegan diet only has beta carotene, and beta carotene needs to be converted, and it's converted in the general public into retinol anywhere from 65% to 5%. So if you're genetically very, unblessed, if you're, oh man, somebody dropped something upstairs. Well, no one's crying, so I'll continue the video. Basically your body is vitamin A, it needs retinol. And that's found in animal food. Beta carotene is the vitamin A version of plant and is poorly converted. So long-term, being on a vegan diet, you're going to become vitamin A deficient. Not to mention that vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, and the study that says that it's absorbed it's used anywhere at a conversion of 65 to 5%. That's with saturated fat. The body needs vitamin K1 and K2. The plant kingdom only has vitamin K1. It's poorly converted. We don't even know the conversion rate. If you have gastrointestinal problems, you might not be converting any of it. Therefore, vitamin K2 is found only in animal foods. The only way of getting vitamin K2 if you're a vegan is through natto, and that's not because, which is fermented soybean, that's not because the soybean itself has it, it's because of the bacteria that they put in to ferment it, produces the vitamin K. Vitamin D3 we need. The plant kingdom does not have vitamin D3, it only has vitamin D2. If you're a vegan, the only way you're going to get the D3 is from the sun. But most people put sunscreen, and so now you have a vitamin D deficiency. Your sex hormones are basically saturated fat, cholesterol, and vitamin D3. Those things are all missing in the plant kingdom. We need essential omega-6 and omega-3 fats. Every single animal food has a blend of omega-6 to omega-3 fats, except in the plant kingdom, ALA is the version of omega-3. And that's converted anywhere from, I used to pop this up there in my older videos. I think DHA was 6% and EPA was 3%. I might be switching them, but like we're talking about when you're eating your chia seeds, when you're a vegan and you have 0 sources of omega-3 besides these kind of seeds that are in the form of ALA, you're talking about 5 and sometimes below 5 conversion, and I'm being generous with that. And so again, this is a significant lack in omega-3. That means that your omega-6 to 3 ratio, if you're on a vegan diet, is out of whack, putting you in a pro-inflammatory condition. So you can imagine that now you're going out in the sun and you're burning. So I guess the ketogenic diet got very poor marks for nutritional completeness, yet we know the carnivore diet, just the carnivore diet, will give you every nutrient. You do full carnivore, no supplementation. You do vegan diet, I just went through all of those. Oh yeah, vitamin B12. What about iron issues? What about folate? Like guys, yet they will call this new plant-based movement and the vegan being pushed for the vegan diet a whole food plant-based diet. And it's so whole food, yet look at all the lack and it could only exist in a modern culture so detached from nature and requires supplementation and transportation of coconuts and mangoes over here in Canada, out here while there's full of snow. When in reality, before transportation, I would be eating almost a strict carnivorous diet, and whatever I had stocked up, during the summer seasons. What else? How easy is the diet to follow? Well, anyone who knows anything about the ketogenic diet, we know that the amount of satiety that this diet creates is wonderful. It's because we are not locking ourselves out of our fat storage. You know that ketogenic diet makes us become a fat burner, and therefore carbohydrates. You have to wonder why people on this high carb, low fat diet have morbid obesity. They're hungry every 3 to 5 hours. Their hormones are so out of whack, giving them signals that they are literally starving. Some people feel dizzy if they're not eating sugar every 3 to 5 hours. Yet, when they go only 3 hours, why don't they have access to the fat storage that's supposed to be there when you have no food? Well, it's because you're consuming something that's not essential, something that the body can produce through gluconeogenesis. If you're eating essential fats and essential amino acids, so if you're getting the protein and the fat, especially when it's animal sources, your body can produce exactly the amount of sugar that's required. And keep in mind that your blood, within, let's say, an average 5 liters in the human body of blood, the typical average, there's only 4 teaspoons. 4 grams, that's less than a teaspoon of sugar at a time. So why do you think the body always burns through the sugar first? It doesn't like 40 grams, 60 grams every time you're eating a meal. It doesn't enjoy dealing with 200 to 330, grams, which is recommended. Imagine the people eating junk food are probably, hitting 600, 700, sometimes 1,000 if they do like I used to with a whole carton of ice cream. So, like somebody who thinks it's restrictive to quit smoking, but once they stop, they realize there's freedom because cravings are annoying. The idea that this diet is hard to follow is just written by people that have no clue and have never tried it and can't possibly imagine that they can live without being haunted every 3 to 5 hours like a cigarette smoking person from cravings. The potential long and short-term weight loss, it's admitted that it's the quickest way to lose weight, and the potential for long-term, I have been on it for 4 years and I lost 65 pounds the first year and I've kept it off. I went through the Christmas season eating cookies and whatnot, and I put on 11 pounds and I'm already, it's January January 6th or something, and I'm already, lost the 11 pounds because I'm back on keto. The safety and potential side effects. This is the thing where the critiques say, well, we're not sure, it's not studied enough. Yes, if you want to Google, just to prove my point, Scholar, it'll go to the Scholar articles, the scientific literature, right? Long-term effects of ketogenic diet in obese patients. You can go on the bottom to the conclusion and see that the triglycerides improved, the LDL didn't raise, the HDL was better. So basically all metabolic factors that they seem to be focused on, even if I don't even, they all, they all improved. Wait one second. The fact that they say that there's no research is hogwash. River, down, sweetheart. River, down. Good girl. Oh, what a good girl. Down. Here. After every chapter of this thing, this is the Ketogenic Bible. Okay, it's by Dr. Jacob Wilson and Ryan Lowry, MD, that wrote it, but there's tons of studies. Check it out. After every chapter, here's citations, okay? Look for citations. All of this is research done over the last century. Next chapter, okay? We have stuff studied in the Ketogenic Bible. Looking at it, okay? Ketosis, the basis. It says the past, present, and future of ketogenic diet, constructing a well-formulated ketogenic diet, potential applications, appetite control and weight loss, diabetes, Section 2 is about diabetes, cholesterol, and heart health. All the science, not the hogwash and the propaganda. It speaks about its implication in neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson's, epilepsy, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, its applications in cancer, its application in exercise performance. There's new emerging areas of interest in Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, autism, depression, anxiety, bipolar, migraines, headache, post-traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia, Huntington's disease, polycystic ovarian syndrome, ALS, attention deficit disorder, gluten-1 deficiency syndrome, glycogen storage disease, inflammatory and wounds, aging, diabetes. Yeah, okay, so it hasn't been well studied though. So stay away from it, guys.